Markham nodded approvingly. Coffin was 26 and the first mate 20 years older, but each knew who the superior seaman was. Other captains studied charts. Coffin memorized them, to the never-ending awe and respect of his crew. The young captain had a real brain. If only he wasn't quite so driven. He was pointing toward the shore where the first glimmering lights were coming into view. "I've not pushed the night watch since moonrise to stop half a league from home. We'll berth the Resolute in her own dock tonight. The men may berth where they will." Markham chuckled. Tired as they were, once they made landfall, only those few men with wives would repair to the comforting arms of Morpheus. The rest would awaken anew to drink and debauchery. More of the harbour was coming into view. Markham squinted to port. "It won't be an easy thing to manage in the darkness, sir. I estimate there be near 100 vessels at anchor tonight." Coffin considered the same darkling panorama. Always ready with a joke, our captain, thought Markham, but not what you'd call a jolly chap. "Inform Mr. Harley and Mr. Appleton of the situation ahead. If there are 1,000 ships, we're still going in. Mind Mr. Appleton doesn't go ramming any clippers in the dark, or I'll patch any hole in the hull with his buttocks." "Aye, sir." As often happened, the first mate was unable to tell if his captain was being sarcastic or dead serious. Therefore he treated every ambiguity as gospel, preferring to be thought of as dour rather than stupid. Turning, he unhooked the lamp and swung it from side to side as he yelled sternward, "Reef all topsails! Make for a landing!" The cry was taken up by the other mates, relayed sternward where it eventually reached the ears of the helmsman. Hands leaned on the great wooden wheel. Coffin stood steady as a figurehead, gazing out over the bow. 2 degrees to port, Mr. Markham," he said calmly. "Aye, sir." Once again the first mate shouted orders. He joined his captain in studying the crowded harbour. Running the gauntlet of anchored ships that lay in front of them would be no easy task, especially at night, not if Neptune himself were giving directions. The Resolute was in the hands not of a king, but a Coffin. A bad name, he mused, for a good master. It was a measure of the confidence they had in Coffin that not a man among his crew questioned his decision to try and dock in the darkness. There were only a couple of hours left until morning. It would have been simpler and safer to drop anchor outside the harbour and wait for daylight, but Coffin was not a man to tempt a calm sea. In this isolated part of the world, storms and typhoons could appear with astonishing speed. Overhead, the Southern Cross gleamed, a road sign fashioned of diamonds. The quarter moon turned the shallower water the colour of deep green glass. Luminescence boiled in the schooner's wake, caressing her bow as she disturbed billions of tiny creatures with her passing. The very water seemed on fire as they entered the harbour. Flames towered 100 feet high, throwing the skeletal spars of dozens of vessels into sharp relief. In addition to the apocalyptic sight it presented, the air of Kororareka harbour was dominated by a terrifying, pungent smell. For while many men spent the night ashore wallowing in the drunkenness and debauchery of the part of town known as the beach, others toiled through the darkness on their ships, intent on the final and most noisome stage of that business which brought so many vessels from so many lands to this God-forsaken corner of the globe. Of the 100 or so craft which bobbed at anchor in the harbour, most were whalers. They roamed the vast empty spaces of the Pacific, seeking the great whales, whose rendered corpses would provide light for the lamps of Europe and America. At Kororareka, they came together to boil out blubber and flesh, to restock stores and supplies, and to leave behind their gold. The hellfire that flared across the waters came from gigantic iron cauldrons on the whalers' decks, fired by wood and charcoal brought from New Zealand's fledgling